The U.S. Justice Department filed a lawsuit this week over physical fitness tests given to applicants for state trooper positions in Pennsylvania. It seeks to reform a test which federal officials say discriminates against female applicants. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Naomi Schoenbaum. She is an associate professor of law at George Washington University. Naomi, welcome to Arise America. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So teach us a little primer here. Just tell us, what is the basis, the foundation of the complaint here?
The foundation of the complaint is based on, as you mentioned, a physical fitness test that the Pennsylvania state troopers have in effect for troopers to be eligible for that position. And there is a federal law that prohibits employers from discriminating on the basis of sex in employment. And one way that employers can do that is by putting a test in place that can disadvantage women. And the complaint here is alleging that the physical fitness test disadvantages women and disproportionately excludes them from these state trooper jobs.
And as I understand it in the complaint, it said that in the lawsuit that 94% of the men passed this test in 2003, while only 71% of women pass. And I believe most, if not all, of this test is based on strength and agility, like being able to do 13 push-ups and a 14-inch vertical jump and 70 seconds to run 300 meters. I don't know how fast that is. But do these requirements seem extreme to you?
They don't necessarily seem extreme, but what you have to think about in this area of law is it's very fact-dependent. It really depends on the facts of the case. So as you mentioned, that there is this allegation in the complaint of this disadvantaging of women, that women are doing worse on this physical fitness test than men are doing. But what a case like this really is going to come down to is whether the employer has a good reason for having this test in place. The law says that the test would have to be job-related and be consistent with business necessity. So it's all going to turn on whether these state trooper positions require this level of physical fitness in order for troopers to do this job.
Yeah, and what's your perspective on that? I mean, my idea of what a state trooper, they're a law enforcement officer, what they have to do, they do need to be able to apprehend a suspect and run down someone, maybe restrain them. So does the Pennsylvania state troopers have a legitimate claim in saying that there is this physical requirement to the job?
So I'm going to hesitate to speculate too much here because the complaint is sketchy on this, and it doesn't make any allegations about what the specific physical requirements of the job are. There is an earlier precedent from Pennsylvania, from the Federal Court of Appeals there, in a case about about local transit authority officers. And in that case, the requirements were much more stringent. You had to run 1.5 miles in 12 minutes. And there the court actually upheld that requirement, but it was based on the very specific nature of the needs of those officers, that they had to be able to run on foot quite a distance and quite quickly. So it's really going to depend on whether the troopers here need to be able to do something similar that would require them to be able to meet these physical fitness tests.
Apparently, just a couple of years ago, the Department of Justice also sued the city of Corpus Christi, Texas. Are you familiar with this suit? With very similar allegations, the city ended up settling. So that brings me to my question, and that is, what do you think? And again, this is speculation on your part, but what do you think the likelihood is that Pennsylvania State Trooper will just settle with the Justice Department?
I think there's probably a high likelihood. The Justice Department has a long history of bringing these types of cases. These sorts of disadvantaged allegations, they tend not to be that successful. But in this area, when you're specifically alleging a challenge to physical fitness requirements, the Justice Department has a history of bringing these cases, and they've been pretty successful. So I imagine that they may be also likely, like in the Texas case, to get a settlement here. Again, will depend on the facts of the case.
All right, Naomi Schoenbaum, thank you so much for your expertise. It was good to talk to you.
Thank you.
And you're watching Arise America.